Welcome. I'm Sebastian Mahfood, and you're listening to WCAT Radio, the on-air wing of En Route Books and Media, bringing you the dulcet sounds of Catholic wisdom.
Welcome to the Catholic Mama, where you'll learn how to deepen and defend your faith, find comfort as we share the vocation of parenthood, and learn how to raise your children confidently Catholic. I'm your host, Christine Mooney Flynn. Let's get started.
Hello and welcome back to the Catholic Mama. I'm your host, Christine Mooney Flynn, and thanks for joining me on today's episode, where I am joined by Dr. Cynthia Toolin-Wilson, who is a professor of theology at Holy Apostles College in Connecticut. She is a writer, a convert to the Catholic faith, and interestingly enough, an abortion survivor, which I'm looking forward to discussing here today on this podcast episode. So that's a very brief introduction. Cynthia, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. So would you like me to give you a summary?
Yes, go forth.
Okay, so I wrote this book, Survivor, a Memoir of Forgiveness, and I wrote it back in 2015 when I graduated from Albertus Magnus College in the MFA in Writing program. I had joined that specifically to write this memoir, and the memoir is the story of my mother's attempt to abort me in 1949. She tried to chemically abort me. Her father, my grandfather, went to the drugstore and purchased something that would produce an abortion. And my mother took the drug and started to bleed. And she told me, obviously it didn't work, I'm here. But at age 11, she told me that this had happened and that when she started to bleed and knew that she was losing me, she stopped taking the drug because she was afraid that she might die. So at age 11, I, of course, stayed with my mother and the family, but I never felt the same towards them again. Even though at 11 you really don't understand what abortion means in any great detail, it completely changed the feeling I had for my grandfather, who before that I had absolutely adored. It changed my feeling for my mother. I kept thinking my father probably hadn't known about it, so it didn't really change my feelings towards him too much. But I remember describing how I felt as if someone had just turned off the switch on, the electric switch, and the lights had gone out in the room. That is what happened with my feeling for my grandfather and my mother. So I lived.
That's a very intense feeling to have at such a young age.
It is.
Do you know what prompted your mom to tell you that at that point?
I don't. I've surmised that because my mother and father had such a really terrible marriage, my father was a serial adulterer, and I have estimated that he probably had around 200 women during the marriage.
Oh my goodness.
So he was a serial adulterer, and she knew this, and she was not happy. And so I don't know if she was saying it because she just wanted to hurt me, or if she was saying it because she was looking for someone she could confide in, because she had really no one else.
Sure.
So those are the two solutions I came up with to that question, but I could be entirely wrong. I never did ask her. So, so that kind of changed the relationship permanently. And I went on, went through grammar school, went through high school, graduated from high school, and discovered that my father, in addition to being a serial adulterer, was a liar. So he had told me that he would pay for me to go to college when I was ready. And when the time came, I was graduating from high school. I applied at several colleges. I was accepted, and it turned out that he had drank all the money. So that kind of cut me off from him also. I had some physical defects and emotional defects from the abortion attempt. My face, particularly my face, was somewhat deformed. I think that my lower jaw was way back, and the part of the face underneath the eyes was kind of puffy. Swollen. It looked swollen, but it was just malformed. I needed what I would call facial reconstruction. And the orthodontist that I had at the time, trying to fix my mouth and my lower jaw, said that I actually was the worst case that he had ever seen, and he wanted to take pictures and publish it in a journal, to show how I was fixed, I guess would be the word.
How old were you at that point?
I was 30.
Later?
I was 38. Okay. Yeah, because I had to pay for it. So my parents didn't. But like my left eye kind of wanders around, and I jokingly say that it wanders so far that I don't know why it doesn't hit my right eye. And the joints on the left side of my body are smaller than the joints on the right side. And I was almost born with spinal bifida, but was not. I had a doctor tell me that it was very close. So I had physical defects, which overall, other than not being very attractive, haven't impacted me that much. But, it left me with a lot of emotional scars because I really didn't feel secure when I was a child. Of course, I wouldn't have had that language when I was a child, but I didn't feel very secure. So that has followed me throughout much of my life.
Sure. Yeah, that's very understandable.
Mm-hmm. So the reason that I wanted to write the book, apart from trying to tell people who might be considering having an abortion that they shouldn't, because, I ended up living a happy and successful life after a while. But what happened was my parents both died in 1985, 6 weeks apart from each other. It was the year that the year after I received my PhD, and so I buried them both, and I never really thought of them. And it was many, many years later, and I was thinking about all the people I had buried in this particular city that had been my relatives. And I was like, gee, I know there were other people. And I was sitting there thinking, and I actually had forgotten that I had buried my parents there. That is the extent to which I was not thinking of them.
Wow.
And I was kind of alarmed because I thought, wow, that's really not normal, and I sat down and I realized one day that they'd actually been dead for 35 years, for half of my life. And, so that, that was kind of a lasting impact. But there is good news to the story. And the reason that I actually wrote this is because when I was 38, I went to Rome with my now deceased husband and his mother and the whole family, the kids. We went to Rome, and I was not anti-Catholic, but I just wasn't interested in religion. So while we were in Rome, we would have breakfast together and dinner together, and they'd go do religious sites because they were devout Catholics, and I'd go shopping or see the archaeological sites or the museums. And towards the end of the trip, my husband asked me to go on a bus tour with him and his family, the family. And I said, well, we're already eating breakfast and dinner together. But he did ask again. So I said, okay, if you can find a bus tour that doesn't have anything religious on it, I will go. So I got on the bus, and it was Italy in August, and there was only one religious site on the whole thing. And I said, I just won't go in, I just didn't have any interest. So we parked outside of the catacombs, which was the one site, and I realized that there was no air conditioning on the bus in, a very hot summer in Italy, and there was no bathroom. And that later I realized that told me that God has a great sense of humor. So anyway, I got off of the bus and I went into the catacombs. It was cool in there. I walked by some people having mass, and I thought, that's weird. It's not Sunday. Why are they having mass? Went to the bathroom, and I thought, well, it is cool in here, so I'm just going to join the group and stay cool. So I caught up. I was like the last person in the line, and the tour guide, you have to have a tour guide in the catacombs so you don't wander off and get lost. The tour guide was a Roman Catholic priest in a cassock, although at the time I didn't know that was what it would be called. And he was talking, and I know that he said some things about the history of the catacombs, something about the martyrs, but I really didn't have, I don't have recall of everything he said, or really even of the sense of it. But while I was standing there, I had this almost like ticker tape go through my brain, and I saw the words in my head, "The truth is in the Catholic Church," and truth was capitalized. Now, I had no idea at that time what that would mean, and I knew immediately that I did not imagine that, because there's no way in the world that something like that would ever go through my mind.
Yeah, especially somebody who's in Italy who doesn't want anything to do with the religious part. Yeah.
Right. So I'd say within 5 minutes or so, or 5 seconds or so, I decided that I had to convert.
Wow.
So, which was dramatic. And I came back to the United States. We left the next day. And when we got home, I said to my husband, I want you to call your parish priest because I'm going to convert. And he laughed because he thought I was joking. And I said, no, I'm serious. And so I did convert. And that actually was the most significant thing that has ever happened to me in my life. Among other things, I finally was able, not immediately, but I was finally able to move towards forgiving my parents. And eventually I got to the point where I had more understanding about what my mother had gone through. And, I have no idea why my father acted the way he did, unless he was a sexaholic. But I know that the dynamics between them was what led her more or less in desperation to have an abortion, or try to have an abortion, to try to do this chemically. So over a period of, it took years, but I was finally able to forgive them and to pray for them. And I went on to become a Roman Catholic theologian. I am a full professor of dogmatic and moral theology here at Holy Apostles. I teach online now, not in the classroom. And I'm the chief academic officer here. So
you're all in.
I'm all in.
And have you been back to Italy since?
I was there when my husband and I went to Oberammergau for the Passion Play, and we were in Italy for a short period of time.
Okay.
Obviously, the difference was traumatic. But so that basically is the reason for writing the book. It's not just to tell about the abortion attempt or even the conversion, but it's to tell people that, you can have a really rotten beginning in life. And I did. Not only, from a very poor family, but, you can start off with all kinds of physical and mental defects. You can have to struggle to go to college. And, you can do those things and you can have an okay life using human resources, your own human resources. But when you accept Christ, everything changes. And that's the message I want people to have, because it isn't enough. I was a doctor when I converted. I was successful, but I wasn't happy inside, even though I loved my family, but there was something unsettled, something that had never been fixed. And once I converted, once I accepted Christ, once I accepted the Trinity and all that goes along with our religion, then I was able to forgive, and even to forgive myself for the terrible way that I had felt about my parents, because of what had occurred. So the message and the whole reason for going to Albertus was to get that message out. Life can really be terrible. You can stand up and pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. But until you go that extra mile and, accept Christ, then you're never going to have peace.
Yeah, that's very powerful, because, I am a convert as well, and I just converted over the past couple of years after a lifetime of being pretty anti-religious, but very new agey, so blah, blah, blah.
Oh, okay.
That's just I don't know. It was all, a waste of time, whatever. But I accumulated, I had a fine childhood. I came from a very loving, stable home. No complaints there, but I had still accumulated a lot of anger and I can't think of the word right now. My brain's fogging over. I just things, grudges. That's the word I'm thinking.
Yes,
grudges.
yes.
But things that I just couldn't forgive, and they were on such a small scale. And after accepting Jesus Christ and coming into the church, there was no way that I could hold on to any of that. I remember one day. When I really started praying the rosary, I was getting into the sorrowful mysteries, and it felt like all the grudges I was holding and the anger that I had and how quick my temper, my goodness, it felt like I was the one holding the whip that was striking Jesus. And I remember the tears pouring down my face, but it was very freeing at that point as well, knowing that I had no business being this angry. Just let it go. And if I can do that for the little instances in my life, that's amazing to hear that even on a grand scale, because you read your memoir, and my goodness, there's a lot of dysfunction and a lot of badness that was there.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And yet you were able to find that peace and forgiveness. It's amazing.
It is. You're right. It is, and I'm thankful for that every day. And I think that it's important for people to see. To really see what God can do in your life. It's, things that I never would have thought that I could get past. I'm sure with the number of women that my father had before there was such a thing as effective birth control. Obviously, I'm anti-birth control, but being realistic, there are people who use it. And I'm sure my father did, although it wasn't effective at that time. And it's like, I know there have to be relatives out there. There's no way that a man can have that many women and not one slip up, So I'm thinking I probably somewhere have a brother or a sister or maybe many. Yeah. It could be that this happened early on in his life and the people that were born so much earlier before me are already dead. But, there's two things. When I die, I'll know that. If they attain heaven and I attain heaven, I'll meet them. So that's enormous. And I also, one of the things I had to forgive myself for, and I'm very open about that, is that I had used artificial means of birth control. And, of course, at the time, we were taught, when I was young, that birth control prevented pregnancy. We didn't know, the majority of us had no idea that they were also abortifacients.
Sure.
And, so it's conceivable that I, through using birth control, was pregnant at times and lost babies, didn't know it, lost the embryos. Again, that was unintentional, but it could have cost somebody their life. And so when I go to heaven, I will potentially meet children that I didn't know I had. So
It's
when
pretty mind-blowing to think about all that.
Oh, I know. It's like when you take that step, it's like you really don't have any idea of where it's going to take you.
Sure.
But it's amazing.
Did you wind up in this whole process of forgiveness of yourself and your family? Was the sacrament of reconciliation, did that figure heavily in there for you?
Oh, yes. There's no question of that. But it was also, and the Eucharist, frequent reception of the Eucharist, going to reconciliation. But it's also, it takes time. Even when you see, gee, I shouldn't have done that to my mother, or I shouldn't have done that to my father, or I shouldn't have allowed her mistake of saying that to me. And I mean, I don't think it was a mistake on her part. I think it was done deliberately, but to give her the benefit of the doubt, maybe she slipped, and, it wasn't right of me to hold that against her for the rest of our combined lives. But it takes time too, because those things leave scars. God heals the scars. He really does. But it's not something that, I know he could heal them overnight, but I don't think that's usually the way it occurs.
Grow in virtue, otherwise, with the long game.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's even the things, if people are struggling, they may struggle their entire lives, but we can know that our God is the one that at least he wipes away all tears in the eternal life as well.
Yes.
I gotta say, there's times, in my own journey to the faith and healing, I've gone to confession. My husband likes to joke because he was baptized as a baby in the Catholic faith, but then fell away. But I didn't get baptized until I was 32. So I was like, I got baptized. I didn't have to worry about confession for that many years. I got wiped clean. But even still, I still felt, I wound up going into confession. I think a week later, just because I still had things weighing on me from those prior years. But it just, even now, even though I've confessed things that they still gnaw on me sometimes, and I have to remind myself of God's love and his forgiveness and the fact that he has I've gone to confession, he's forgiven all these things. But they do leave a mark. Thankfully it's not an indelible marking on our souls like baptism. But they can take a long time.
In many ways, I think that remembering things is not bad. Not that you're sorry for what you did. You've been forgiven, but it also gives us a good dose of the reality of, it gives us some humility, but also I think that it reminds us of how great God's love is. And, so in that sense, I think that there is something positive when we think about the bad things we've done. Yeah.
As long as you're not dwelling on them, but remembering.
No, I agree.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
And I think also in the case of my mother, I often say, and I think people can misunderstand it easily, but I say forgive, but don't forget. And the reason I say that is if you forget, you need to remember what happened so that you can figure out why things happened, so even though, I've forgiven my mother and my father, I don't know if I think, he knew what was going on and probably was happy about it. But I think that knowing her life, I can't imagine how I would feel if my husband cheated on me. And I can't imagine how I'd feel if he cheated on me all the time. So if you're a woman in that time when you couldn't really do anything about it, you couldn't get a job, you couldn't take care of yourself, you knew that your husband was cheating. I mean, I can understand at some level her desperation, which I couldn't understand when she told me the story. So being
Yeah,
able to
even at that
remember
age, I mean, that
yes,
perspective that
right,
comes with age.
right, right. So that's, so not forgetting in many ways, in my case, did good. I'm not saying it would do that for everybody, but it did enable me to think. I mean, she must have been heartbroken.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah. So
absolutely. Yeah, so how culpable was she really morally
yeah,
to
yeah,
make this in her right mind,
yeah.
these kind of
I agree.
decisions? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, so the book right now is finished. We're just waiting to
We're
send it out
just
into the world, right?
we're trying to find a publisher.
Well, I guess it was the writing, and that's awesome that you went and you did your MFA specifically for this. I mean, the writing is so poignant. I mean, I was reading, I was like, wow, yeah, holy moly, it's great. It's great writing, and I really
Thank
I
you.
hope this. I am sure that it'll make its way out because it is. You're right. Forgiveness, God's forgiveness, is such an important thing that, especially, I think. Over the years, we start to accumulate a lot of things, and it's hard for us to imagine that anybody could forgive us completely 100% when we have such a hard time forgiving others.
Yes.
But thank goodness, literally,
Yeah.
that God is much greater than us and can offer that forgiveness.
I agree.
And yeah, that is certainly a message that needs to be heard more often.
Well, I hope it gets out there too, because I do think that even if one person reads it and it changes their life, even for that matter, maybe I was just meant to write it so that I could have a radio interview and somebody will listen to it and it'll change their life.
And really, yeah, how amazing could that be that you could change somebody's life? They could go back to the church, or they could wind up in heaven, because of this one, this story of yours. I think that's so powerful, and it's never wasted.
Yeah,
certainly
I agree.
Never wasted.
Yeah.
Actually, I was just talking to my husband the other day. I would love to, when God willing, I get to heaven, to get to meet everybody who prayed for me to get there. And then also, if I wound up helping anybody get there, I really, that'd be so fascinating to see how that's all interconnected.
Yes, I agree.
How long did the whole process of writing take you then? I don't know how long an MFA usually is.
Well, the MFA itself was about 3 years. I had to take some time off in the middle of it because at that time I was working also as the institutional statistician, and accreditation came up. So I did take a little more than a semester, I think. Could have actually been a year. It was a while ago now. And, I didn't stop, though. I continued writing, but I wasn't in the program. And then when accreditation was finished and we received it, thank heavens, I went back and finished. So the actual time I was in the program was 3 years, but there was a little bit of a hiatus in the middle. But I found it to be a very good program because they allowed you to, you could choose. You either did poetry, nonfiction, or fiction. And I went in with the idea of memoir, obviously. And I found them to be a very supportive faculty and very, very good writers in their own stead. So it was an enjoyable experience, but the writing was an enjoyable experience in the sense of learning how to do it, getting it out. But I mean, there were things that I couldn't believe I could remember. It's like I sat down with a piece of paper, I think actually 3 pieces of paper, and I wrote single lines on the line paper, just a few words of things I wanted to include in the memoir that showed how bad things were. And I remember things that I, like the whole sleeping arrangement. Like my father, even though he had a bedroom, he put a board over the stairwell and he put like a little lip on it so that he couldn't fall off of the board in the night if he was drunk, And I was like, what was he thinking?
I'm glad you could laugh about this now. That's very important.
Talk about a death wish.
Yeah, seriously.
But I also realized that how weird I was when I was young, because I talk about the movie or the TV show I watched where some guy was mentally ill and he would sleep in the closet and close the closet door. And I thought, that's a great idea. Right? I mean,
just completely forgetting the fact that he's mentally ill.
Right. I felt like I can go in the closet. I'll have coats and things above me. People won't be able to see me. I'll put boxes on the floor and I'll just climb over the boxes, pull them over me a little bit, and no one will know I'm in there. And it was like, whoa. I was really weird when I was young. But I think that says something, because that really isn't, I mean, all kidding aside, when you're starting to think about sleeping in a closet under the boxes, and to this day, I still prefer to sleep on a couch because my back is against it, and I feel that I'm less vulnerable.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, see, that's not normal.
Yeah, right. Well, there's whether or not you realize that there's this lingering things you pick up over the years. Yeah, I was just thumbing back through today in preparation. I came across again the part of just remembering only taking a shower a couple times in your whole childhood, and although the boil, it's just well done. As I was reading this, I was like, wow. And what a great point though that you made, that you yourself can pull yourself up from your bootstraps, and you hear about these amazing stories of people who from disadvantaged backgrounds making it and doing really good things. But how powerful is that to say that you did all of that, but still you needed the help
more. I needed help bad. And there is no question of that. Like I mentioned also in the book that I had taken 2 showers when I was a child, and one of them, of course, ended in some sexual abuse. And then the weirdness of thinking about washing my hair twice a year. So I look back at that, and it's like, I don't understand why no one ever called the police. It's like, didn't neighbors see what was going on? Apparently not, or they didn't care. But it's like, so you look back and it's like, wow, I'm lucky I lived. I'm lucky I lived through the abortion attempt, and I'm lucky I lived to be an adult. So it was...
You've lived to tell this story.
Yeah.
And to live a good life and come to the Catholic Church. There's a happy ending, That's awesome.
There's a very happy ending.
That is the beautiful thing about our faith, is that there is a happy ending.
There is.
So long as you're part of the church, there's something very good there. Whether we get it in this life or the next, and hopefully we start in this life having that happiness.
Yeah.
So, where is the best place that people can find you and keep up with your works and your writings? And when this book comes out, where should we send forth these people?
Well, now I have a website, Cynthia Toolin-Wilson. Boy, I can't say my name. Cynthia Toolin-Wilson.com. I also just published with Sebastian Mahfoud en route the Story of Holy Apostles, which is written with another professor who actually was one of my teachers at Albertus. He's a devout Catholic. Yep. So Bob Hubbard and I wrote the Story of Holy Apostles, going all the way back to the 1950s. It's kind of like in yearbook format, but over 60 or so years. So that's available. But the book itself, it'll take some more time to find a publisher. And but I do post not as regularly as I should, because I do work and I'm married.
You got things to do.
I do. I have a life. I have a happy life.
That's wonderful.
So, but I do post on my website on occasion, and I do have email there also that people can reach me at.
Great. That's wonderful. Yeah, it's funny when you're just, and I will put for anybody listening, I will put the link directly into the show notes so that you can, get in touch with Cynthia there. No need to jot it down now or try to remember it. But I was just chuckling when you tripped up over your name. I hyphenated my name, and I am kicking myself for doing that because I trip up over it all the time, and then I can't remember. I never like told every bank account that I changed my name because I didn't feel like sending them a copy of my marriage certificate. So I have. My name is different across everywhere, and I just get so confused. And I really, now looking back, one name would have been enough, but here we are.
Yeah, I actually did that. My husband died. We were married the better part of 35 years, and he died of, we were together, between dating and being married. We were together 35 years, and he died of esophageal cancer. But Toolin, and I'd been Toolin for 35 years, or, well, not exactly 35, but a long time. So I kept that. And then the four of us in a campground had been friends, my husband, Jimmy, and I, and Bill Wilson and his wife, Bertha. So the four of us were friends in Vermont in a campground, and his wife died first. Bertha died of ovarian cancer. And then Jimmy died of esophageal cancer, and Bill and I had known each other for 10 years, so we eventually married. So I wanted to have his name, Wilson, but I didn't want to give up Toolin because so that's why it's
that makes sense. That makes much more sense than what I did. That was actually, I wound up doing it. My husband was like, no, I want you to have my last name. Well, it turns out that he was kind of joking, and I didn't know. So I go through this whole process of sitting down at the Social Security office, getting my name changed. Well, I can't go back because it took hours. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
Oh, well. Young and crazy. No.
Yeah.
Well, Cynthia, thank you so much for coming on and sharing this. And I so appreciate, this is a heavy subject, and yet you approach it with, you can tell that you're Catholic, you approach it with forgiveness and joy, and that's a beautiful thing. So thank you so much for coming on, and I'm excited to share this episode. And for anyone listening, again, I'll put links to where you can find Cynthia online and connect with her and her email address if you want to shoot her a letter or a note. And then yes, whenever this memoir comes out, I will share it all over, because I think it's that concept of forgiveness is huge.
Thank you.
So again, Cynthia, thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. Until next time, everyone.
Okay. Bye.
Don't forget to head over to thecatholicmama.com to get your free copy of How to Talk to Your Kids About God. This handy little ebook will teach you how to broach the topic of God with your children, or how to respond to your kids when they want to talk about God, as well as give you answers to 7 of the trickiest questions about the faith that Christian parents face. You'll love the easy-to-understand grown-up answers, the pared-down but not talked-down answers you can share with your kids, plus recommended resources if you'd like to deepen your understanding of the topic. Get yours free at thecatholicmama.com.
Hi, everybody. This is Al Belowski, host of Catholic Mysticism and all things Catholic. We have such a beautiful, vibrant faith, and I want to introduce you to it. And what we do on the show is we talk about the supernatural. We talk about a prayer life. We talk about the battle that's waged between good and evil. We talk about Satan, and we talk about God and the battle that they have begun for our souls. And we talk about our brothers and sisters, the saints. And we want to get you into this wonderful supernatural aspect of our faith, where we talk about miracles of the Eucharist, where we talk about Our Lady's apparitions at Fatima and Lourdes. And we can let our souls be nourished with this and continue to grow closer to our Lord in holiness. And by our brothers and sisters that have gone before us, the saints, that we tap into their lives and talk about them and the challenges that are so relevant today in our world as it was for them. And we use this to become closer and closer to our Lord, because we are spiritual beings, and He has given us this great gift of His church to nourish us with His sacraments, especially in the Eucharist and confession and confirmation and all the beautiful things of our faith that lead us closer and closer to Him. So I hope you'll tune in for Catholic Mysticism, where we will try, you and I, together to grow closer through the Holy Spirit to our Lord Jesus Christ. God bless.
We hope you enjoyed the program and will join us back for another show on WCAT Radio. This is Sebastian Mahfood. Good day.